Hello and welcome to our ESPN video series for basketball camera coverage. In this video, we will be going over camera 1, also known as the game camera. To begin, we'll take a brief look at a basketball court and how the cameras are laid out for a basketball broadcast. Your game camera is traditionally going to be on an elevated position, likely on a camera platform that already exists in the venue, and it's always going to be pretty close to mid-court at that half-court line. Next, we'll take a look at some basic camera assignments for this position. You are the main play-by-play camera. That means that you will be live, you will have a tally pretty much all times that the ball is in play. For standard game framing, you're just looking to present to the viewer everything that's happening on the floor. That means that you need to keep the ball in your frame at all times, and more often than not, you're seeing all 5 players on both teams on the floor, especially after they cross half court and they get set in their offense. Something to remember is that you need to frame accordingly for the score bug and for the bottom line. Now that bottom line will only be there if you are working a linear show, but that score bug will be in that lower center location, no matter if you're a linear show or a digital show. So you need to remember to frame accordingly with the score bug and potentially with that bottom line. And you should never be cutting off any players at the top of your frame or at the bottom of the frame, and that includes that score bug and bottom line. You should always have subtle movement on this camera following the movement of the ball. A slight tilt up with the ball whenever it goes to the top of your frame, and a slight tilt down with the ball whenever it goes towards the bottom of the frame. You can subtly zoom in once the ball does get closer to the basket, and on any jump shots, you just need to be prepared to tilt up with the jump shot to make sure that the ball on any field goal attempt isn't leaving the top of your frame. Here are a couple screen grabs that are good examples of different framing depending on where the ball is. So the screen grab on the left, you can see number 7 in white circled. So the ball's at the top of the frame. They've tilted up a little bit. There's a little bit more room above the backboard. And you can see number 55 in white on the lower part of the frame is getting cut off by that score bug a little bit. That is okay since the ball is at the top of the frame and that's where the viewer's eyes are. Now in the example on the right, number 55 at the bottom of your frame does have the ball, and you can see the operators tilted down a little bit. They've panned to the left with where the ball is. So you're seeing more space around the baseline. You're seeing less space in the backcourt. You've tilted down a little bit, so number 55's lower half isn't getting cut off by that score bug. And both of these examples are good framing dependent on where the ball is. After a made basket, you need to immediately be ready to bring the ball back up the floor the other way. So kind of what we mentioned earlier, if you are subtly zooming in with a jump shot, that's great. You just always need to make sure that you're ready for the next possession and that you're always ready to bring the ball up the floor, whether it's after a made basket, whether it's after a change of possession, whether it's after a turnover. You should always be alert in case a team wants to bring the ball up quickly and push the pace. You should always be aware if a team is going to press the inbound pass after a made basket. These two things are just very important to be aware of. This just means you shouldn't be zooming in very much after a made basket because the action is going to happen pretty much immediately as soon as the other team gets it and tries to inbound the ball. If there's a great crowd and there's a made home basket that gets the crowd really into it, a subtle zoom out could look nice after that made home basket instead of a subtle zoom in, just to showcase that crowd. But most directors will call for this, and this is a conversation that you should have with them before the game. So make sure that you're asking that question, see if this is something that they might want. After a whistle or a timeout, a subtle zoom in towards wherever the momentum is. If a team just made a big basket that caused the other team to call a timeout, I would follow that team that made that big basket. Again, very subtle push in with that team over towards their bench. If it's a whistle just on a foul, a subtle push in is okay. But again, you're never wanting to get too tight in case the director's not able to cut off of your camera. That way you're ready to still be game camera and you're ready to adjust for whenever the ball gets put back in play. Here are a couple video examples of good camera 1 work. This is again from that ACC men's championship game last year. What we're looking out for is subtle movement with the ball. The ball always is in their frame and they're anticipating jump shots. So they cross half court, they get the ball to number 14 who is on the near side of their frame. So they tilt down with it to make sure they're not cutting off. They get it to the big fella, he gets into the paint, and it's a slow push in as he gets closer to the basket. And then as soon as the shot goes up and it's missed, they zoom back out a little bit and they're ready to bring the ball up the floor the other way. Now North Carolina's got the ball. They pass it down to number 7 on the near side of the floor. They're tilting down with it. So that way you're not cutting off anybody. Now it gets passed back up. They get it back in the paint. A little bit of a subtle push in there. Now the rebound happens, and you can tell they're already panning the direction of where the ball is going to go to eliminate any wasted space behind where the ball is. So again, ball gets passed down to the near side of the frame. Jump shot happens. They tilt up. Ball stays in their frame for the entire jump shot. Now they're bringing the ball up the floor the other way. Subtle push in once the offense gets set. Again, just subtle movement during the entire time, no wasted space, keeping the ball in frame, even on that jump shot right there from the far side, top side of your frame. Really good camera one work here. Here's a good video example of a proper free throw framing from game camera. If anything, you can see that number 4 in white and 33 in blue, their feet are getting cut off a little bit by the bug. So ideally, this camera operator would have tilted down just a tick or maybe have zoomed out a little bit. But you can see that the gap between the shooter and the hoop is what's pretty much framed up in the center of your shot. We'll go ahead and play the clip. So this is an important free throw here late in the game. You can see it's a 1-point game. They miss it. The camera operator zooms out a little bit. Home team has the ball. Huge bucket gets made here. The crowd is going absolutely nuts. So it's a controlled, subtle zoom out until the director cuts off of it to help get that crowd going nuts and to help capture some more of that atmosphere before the director even has to cut off of their game camera. That concludes this video. Thanks for watching.